This is KTVO's Good Morning Heartland.
Welcome back. In less than a month, kids across the Heartland will be headed back to school. While they'll all be deep in their studies, some kids seem to have more trouble than others. Today we have Dr. Puckett from Complete Family Medicine here this morning to discuss one of the more common problems, ADHD. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So I've heard of ADHD and I hear it loosely nowadays. So kind of just explain exactly what is ADHD.
Well, to have ADHD, I like to think about it, we're all a little bit hyperactive and inattentive, and at certain times and in certain environments that may be more profound than others. But ADHD is really a chronic, long-term effects of either hyperactivity, impulsivity, or inattentiveness, but it really goes beyond just being annoying at times. It really enters into disabling some children and adults. 30 to 50%, depending upon the study, of kids with ADHD will go on to have symptoms throughout adulthood.
Wow. So let's talk about those symptoms. What should we look out for to kind of have concern over it?
Right. Well, I mentioned that there's three types. And so the first type is the hyperactive type. And that is what most comes to our mind. It's the kid at the grocery store that's just running all over and full of energy and often joy, very happy kids, but just can't seem to have a calm moment. A lot of times the hyperactive kids also get into trouble by being impulsive, and so they're doing things without really thinking about the consequences. And then the third, or the second type is the inattentive type, and that's what we mostly see in girls. It's where maybe they're not getting in trouble because it's not so much behaviors, but it's trouble paying attention and focusing on a task. So some kids are hyperactive and can't focus, and others are just inattentive, and so their mind is all over the room, anywhere except on the chalkboard.
Right. So now you just mentioned boys and girls. Now, does it affect more boys than girls? Is it even across the playing board? Explain that. Well,
we're not really sure, to be honest, but we know that more boys are diagnosed, and we think that may be because more boys are hyperactive, and so whenever discipline becomes a problem, that's often what leads a lot of parents to bringing their kids into the office. It's much rarer for a parent to come and say that my kid is inattentive. And oftentimes it takes, the inattentive is diagnosed in the teens versus younger ages, because once the studies get real in depth, that inattentive student can have a lot of trouble. So we think that it's more, we know that right now we're treating more boys than girls, about 30% more, but we're not really sure if it's just that we're missing some of those girls and some of the inattentive types at a younger age.
Now let's talk about, I had mentioned that, I don't mean to say that we hear it loosely, but I feel like we hear about it all the time, like, oh, my child has ADHD or so-and-so has ADHD. Does it seem like there's more kids nowadays being diagnosed with it than it were when we were in school? Because growing up, never heard of ADHD whatsoever until I got into my college years, and then I heard, nieces and nephews or younger siblings being diagnosed with it. So is it more common nowadays than it was back then? Is it because of testing and stuff like that?
Well, we're definitely diagnosing and treating more. So it's not. It is true that we're seeing more of it, and we're not really sure. I mean, the school environment hasn't really changed that much. I mean, they're doing a lot of different things, but as far as the structure, if anything, it's become more accommodating to those students. And so, but we're in a go-go lifestyle, and so the kids often feel that same stress and have more trouble putting things together in a structure that works for them. And so, definitely more being diagnosed, but we're not really sure what's caused that.
Okay, now let's talk about some treatments. What are treatments out there for ADHD?
Well, everybody immediately jumps on medicines, and that really should be a strong number 2. Medicine is not a changer in the game at home and at the school if there's not structure. So the number one thing is behavioral modifications at home and at school. So trying to do structure, make sure that you're not making sure that we have the right diagnosis, because there's a lot of other mental health things that can play into that, depression and other things. And also, some kids just have discipline issues, and that medicines are not a form of parenting. So item number 1 is behavioral changes, structure at home, structure at school, parenting with good discipline, follow through. And then second would be talking about some of the medications. We think about stimulants like Adderall or Vyvanse or one of those types of medicines, and they're the most effective. And then we do have three non-stimulant medications now to address ADHD. And so there's quite a bit of options out there from a medicine perspective, as well as some of the behavioral things.
Okay, and what we'll do is we'll post everything on our website at heartlandconnection.com with the information, as well as information linking up Dr. Puckett's Complete Family Medicine building, in case anybody has questions or concerns and they want to learn more about it. So thank you so much, Dr. Puckett.
Thank you.